Anyway, we have this segment we call Ask Al, and I'm getting ready to do that here, Ethan, because our listeners send in their questions on sales. And if you're listening and you have a question you want me to answer on the air, my email address is al.simon@sandler.com. al.simon@sandler.com. SANDLER. And send in your question, and in each show I pick a question to answer on the air. And here's one listener sent in. The question is, what's the biggest gotcha that you ever experienced from a sales prospect? And I have to tell you, I thought through this one for a long time because there are several, but maybe the biggest one happened like in the first month of my sales career. 1977, yes, I'm that old. 1977, right out of college, and I was working for NCR Corporation selling cash registers in Columbus, Georgia. Now this is pretty glamorous right here. This is exciting stuff. And now I remember I was downtown Columbus, and I was calling on a clothing store, a men's clothing store. And the owner of the store said, "Do you have any references for me? Do you have any references for me? And I want to talk to other clothing store owners who are using your cash registers." So, I went off to some research, and there were only a couple. And so I provided this guy with the names, phone numbers of these couple of clothing store owners. And then went back to him, I don't know, a week or so later. I don't remember anymore. It's long ago. But I remember when I went back to him, he laughed at me, Ethan. He laughed at me. He said, "You better check your own references because these people are not happy." And I didn't get the business. And that was a real lesson right there. It was a real lesson. So let me share with you, now that I'm in the sales training and coaching business, and mostly because I've got all these bruises, these lessons, like you, Ethan. You learn lessons from mistakes, and so here's the thing: if you're going to get references, and in many cases prospects want to talk to references. Okay, think about that. Your prospects are going to talk to your customers, and you're not going to be there when they have that conversation. Think about that a minute. All right. The situation is dangerous, right? Because there are no questions that are out of bounds, and you can't really do much about the answers. Now, so here's the thing. First of all, obviously vet the references before you give them out. Vet them, prepare them for the call. Make sure they understand who's going to call them and why. Talk to the person that wants the references. Ask them, what kinds of questions are you going to be asking? What do you want to know? What do you hope to learn? Make sure you understand all aspects of this dynamic conversation that's going to happen without you, and then prepare your referenceable account and coach them on how to answer. For one thing for sure, I tell my clients, if I have someone call you, please don't talk about the pricing. Please don't. They'll probably ask, and it's okay to say to my prospect that the investment is significant, but use those words. The investment is significant. That's the words I want them to use. I don't want them to use numbers. I don't want them to say, "Wow, Al's really expensive," or just the investment is significant, and the word investment is key there. It implies an ROI. Because then when I go back and talk to the prospect again, we'll talk about the investment and we'll talk about the ROI. But see, that's my job as the salesperson. It's not my customer's job to tell my pricing to my prospects. You got to control that. You got to have control of that. And by the way, if there are no referenceable accounts, really in the space in which your prospect wants the references, like in the case of my gotcha, that you wanted clothing store owners in Columbus, Georgia. Well, if you don't have any referenceable accounts in the vertical or in the geographic area or whatever it is, just say so. Just say so. Just say, Mike, I'm sorry, I don't have anybody currently using us in that space. Is that a problem? Can we talk about it? And have that conversation with your prospect, and find some other way to allay their fears or to give them the information they were looking for that they were hoping to get from a referenceable account. So anyway, most people just fire off the names and phone numbers and email addresses and say, okay, you have at it. And they don't take the time to really do this well. And the thing, when you give out references, is I know it can really hurt you or it can really help you, but you have a lot of control over that if you take the effort and time to do the control. So that's the sales tip of the day, the Ask Al segment.